Okay, so continuation with the last video because I kind of cut it off at like the last 14 seconds. I'm going to continue furthering the admiration of the deeper levels of a person. So, uh, okay, I was talking about. See, one of the true things behind somebody isn't the shallow personality that they present themselves in. First, uh, first, first impression. I guess that's the word. When something, or when somebody gives off a first impression, and it's usually the main thing that kind of introduces you to that person as a whole. Humans are judgmental beings, and when they see someone that they may not like, it kind of comes off almost an immediate thing, or not so much immediate, or maybe this is just me talking about it. My judgment on people is almost immediate, and that's not saying like, hey, you're a good or bad person. I'm more so on a judgmental level of like who they are. Like, um, I looked at you, or I saw somebody they smiled at a specific meme, or their typical musical. Uh, I don't want to say routine, but just their typical reinforcement of what they do on an instrument, or something that they're talented on, and they do that, and that's a judgment on itself. Like, like, if somebody that you just meet is a pianist, or if somebody is very good at playing the piano, you have it in your mind, hey, they're a pianist. Like, that's a judgment, and that's how people judge other people. Like, you identify them with something that you know about. Uh, and that's exactly what I mean when I say I judge people when I first meet them, and I think that's what every single person does. And it's not so much an analysis on people; it's more so like a deeper understanding on who they are. And when somebody exemplifies that with other people, then you have a deeper personal connection with that person, whether you're acquaintances or not. You know that certain thing about somebody, and nothing can take that away from you. One problem with that kind of perception is that kind of understanding of people kind of sticks with them if they have a negative perception of you, or if they had once a good opinion of you, and then later they have a negative opinion of you, and the negative opinion can almost never be rectified, because people hold grudges, and they hurt, and they get bitter, and they get angry, and they lash out at you, or they lash out in different ways. They lash out at themselves, and they become masochistic, or they become sadistic, or sadistic, which would be the more appropriate term, because when somebody's sadistic, they do things out of anger and bitterness to hurt other people, or it's a sexual kink or something like that. um, that's another interpretation of it. You figure out somebody else's sexuality in that way. So there's that. um, yeah, and again, that's just another first level of somebody. Like, if you know somebody's a pianist or a guitarist, or they're a painter, or they're a psychologist, or they're any kind of profession, or there's something that they love to do, that's still first level. Or maybe that's maybe a second level or something like that. Well, no, I would consider that first level. I think there's different tiers of of a personality. How many tiers there are to a person, I have no idea. That's my theory on who a person is. Uh, so the depths of a person is really interesting to think about. I haven't really thought about this before. So the first level of somebody is definitely the first impression, first judgments, first calls on whoever person is. Focus. Okay. Um, so yeah, when somebody kind of when you get introduced to that person, I suppose it's level two, or tier two, whatever you want to call it. The second tier of somebody's personality is getting acquainted. That's what I would uh, perceive it as. Uh, Number three, I suppose, would be friendship. Number four would be intimate relationship. Number four would be platonic intimate relationship. Tier five would definitely be somewhere along the lines of uh, non-biological family, if that makes any sense. Uh, the understandings of how people view others as family, even though they're not blood. And I suppose that would be tier five. Uh, and that's real intimacy there. Like that's probably one of the most intimate things that you can have with somebody. Tier four and five are very intimate perceptions of two different people or a group of people. Because tier four, what did I say? Intimate friendship or intimate relationship. When I say intimate relationship, I'm not talking about romantic relationship just yet. Intimate relationship is definitely something that kind of comes in after acquaintances and friendship, which is tier three. Well, maybe that would be tier five. I mean, no, tier four is friendship. Tier five is intimate relationship. Tier six would be what did I say? Tier five was. I completely forget. Oh my gosh. And this is the problem with me speaking out loud. I forget what I'm talking about a lot of the time, especially if I have a good idea. So tier five was oh yeah, seek a family relationship that wasn't blood. That would be tier six in that regard. And I'm definitely gonna write this down afterwards, and I'm gonna expand upon it. I'm gonna do more research, and I'm gonna start reading a lot of things. So and the reason why that's so intimate is once you're in the friendship, you're in the process of getting to know somebody, or you already know somebody, and that there's a weird fine line between 3 and 4 because in friendship you're getting to know the person entirely, and once you do know that person, then you get into their struggles, and once you get into their struggles, that's when you get into tier 4 because then you share that struggle together, and then you have a compromise of how to bring out the least amount of pain in those circumstances. And then tier 5, which would be familiar relationships or very intimate relationships that constitute that kind of closeness. That constitutes and sometimes tier 6 can be skipped right into romantic relationships. Like it can be skipped right over because that kind of leaves the fine line between. Actually, no. I think that romantic and familiar relationships are almost similar in a way. The only difference with a romantic and a familiar relationship is the physical intimacy.